This Democratic primary in the state of Texas, whether it's James Talarico or Jasmine Crockett, whoever wins that seat for the United States Senate, how will that resonate with people not just in Texas, but also around the country? So what I see happening is, let's say Jasmine Crockett wins the Democratic primary. She beats James Talarico. Let's say it's a decisive victory, and this then plants the flag that fighting Trump is the name of the game. We will then see progressive candidates shift, especially the more moderate candidates. We know that the 2018 blue wave, right, ushered in like the most women to Congress ever at that point in time. We also saw a lot more diversity, especially on the Democratic side at that point in time. If Jasmine Crockett wins, that signals a resurgence of that exact coalition. The same folks who, only 8 years ago brought in slightly more left-leaning candidates, but also more diversity and even women. So that would be great to see in the long term, especially in terms of identity. Representation matters. That's great to see. Jasmine would drive that force. On top of that, we know that with the electorate coming with 2026, Trump's approval ratings are like underwater. They're like at minus 27 right now. So the fact that he has like a very net loss for approval is not good for an incumbent president, especially for a guy who's now in his second term. With that said, any type of antagonism against Trump will be magnified. If Jasmine Crockett wins, right, it's clearly her message is fighting Trump. Well, this only exacerbates that even more. So Trump would have to work overtime to improve his approval ratings, but also keeping the boat afloat, which would hopefully then usher in, I shouldn't say hopefully, but actually it would then in turn usher in more Republicans into their respective office. So, or win their respective elections, right? So like if Jasmine wins, that shows that the attack on Trump message is strong. This would also hurt all the Republicans who've hitched themselves to his wagon, okay? So there is a key vulnerability there. If Jasmine wins, fighting Trump will be the key message that Democrats will use in order to take down Trump and the Republicans. However, one problem I do see is that even though we know that Trump is not on the ballot in midterms, technically he's not, it will then come down to how the Republicans outmaneuver Democrats. If Democrats do lean into Jasmine's message more about identity politics based on the candidates who could win, based on, and this is a general election, if there are more identity focused candidates in the general election who aren't, I don't want to say left enough, but if they're not connecting the dots between progressive policy and what Trump is doing with the systems that be, that will become a vulnerability, because then Republicans could outmaneuver Democrats, focus on their typical racist attacks, their anti-DEI attacks, right? Because then that will resonate with the larger, broader, low information voter population that Trump generally does well with. If Republicans can get those folks to the polls, that would counter a blue wave enough to then prevent it. Well, put it this way. It would prevent a huge swath of Democrats winning, but I don't think it would be enough to stop Democrats from getting the blue wave that they deserve. Like, a blue wave is coming. I don't say that as a vote blue no matter who. I say that as like Republicans are very unpopular right now. So there is a chance that Jasmine Crockett's strategy of leaning into her identity and fighting Trump could help usher in more Democrats in office. On the flip side, the other side, James Talarico, who has been running on a message of wealth inequality, attacking the billionaires, and really connecting the dots between rich and powerful and our corrupt systems. The corruption in government has been very key in his messaging when talking to voters, more so when talking about his Christian values. Now, I'm not saying that Democrats are going to shift and all become like seminaries all of a sudden, or priests, whatever. But I will say that they may lean into a less combative type of approach. Like there might not be that same kind of fire that Jasmine obviously brings to the table. But if there is a way to unify, connect the dots, maybe come across as less angsty but more respectable. And respectability politics is, a tool to kind of enable the people in power to stay in power. So like there is a risk in that as well. Like James Talarico isn't like, I don't want to say he's not strong, but I'm going to say he's not a yeller. He doesn't come with fire. He comes with calm. For him, it works based on the type of guy he is. Smooth talker, good at messaging, very clear. I think it's all positive. But now, should he win, right? While the style may not be translated across the electorate for different Democratic candidates heading into the general election, there will be a really good shift in the Democratic Party. I wouldn't be surprised if Ken Martin even tries to pick up on a lot of the messaging that James Talarico is using and then like communicate that across all Democratic candidates running in their elections for the general. Like I could definitely see Ken Martin really picking up on what James Talarico is doing and be like, oh, use that. And it's not to say that like Ken Martin wouldn't do the same for Jasmine. It would just be a lot easier to replicate. I mean, because then at that point, they've done the fighting Trump memo message already. But because Jasmine, as a black woman, does speak to that community so strongly, I don't think Ken Martin can really just like cookie cutter that and be like, all right, use these talking points and go after. Sure, he would, Ken Martin, the leader of the DNC chairman, would definitely take like the fighting Trump talking points, like how can they really attack Trump? And like he would like say, all right, everyone's got to do this. Whereas then with James Talarico's strategy, I think he can say, all right, talk about this type of affordability focused, wealth inequality focused message that will piss off donors, that will scare some of them away. That might not even work for all candidates because when you got moderates who feel like that type of messaging hurts their chances at getting money from donors or even hurts their chances from like wealthy residents, right? Like, I mean, think about Orange County out in California. Like, granted, Katie Porter was able to win that as a Democrat. We know like a lot of people out there are very wealthy, so they're not going to resonate well with like tax the rich. So some of those purple swingy districts, maybe the wealth inequality won't work in that type of district if it's like a wealthier, more affluent voter base. But it will do well in a lot of the working class districts with a lot of independents, and especially with those who are outside the vote blue, no matter who, Democratic loyalty apparatus. Jasmine's message will do well with the Democratic Party base. James Talarico does well with part of the base, but a lot more with independents. I would guarantee that. And sure, maybe polling will say otherwise, right? I don't have the numbers to prove that one way or the other right now. But I can say with a broad message that focuses on wealth inequality at a time when affordability is insane and the Republican regime in the White House right now is the most corrupt we've seen in our modern era. It just makes perfect sense to me that calling out this corruption that people are understanding because they're feeling the material impact from it would resonate with them much more strongly than just fight Trump. Just saying. I could be wrong, but if I had to make an educated guess, that would be my direction. James Talarico, wealth inequality, that'll do well. But hey, we will see on March 3rd. I'm not saying that is the winning message. I'm saying that's my winning message if I had to vote for him. I'm in New York, so I can't vote, but for James Talarico. But I strongly encourage everyone to make their voice heard, whether you're voting for Rep. Crockett or Rep. Talarico, either way, or State Rep. Talarico. Either way, you're making your voice heard in our democracy, because the best way to see the change is to be the change. And that can only happen if you vote. So, the Democratic primary for Texas is on March 3rd. Early voting is happening now, so you can vote today through February 27th. After that, last day to vote is March 3rd. Best of luck to all the candidates. I really hope that, as much as it's a competitive primary, we can rise above the fray, keep it cute, because once that general election comes around, that's when you got to let the fire out. So until then, we have a lot of organizing to do, a lot of folks to talk to, but I believe we can make it happen. I believe we will see Texas turn blue in November of 2026. But until then, I hope you remember that democracy is not suitable without you. Hey, if you like what you hear and want to learn more, then make sure to subscribe to Not Suitable for Democracy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Or you can follow along on Instagram and TikTok. I use the same handle for both, so you can follow along at NSFD_pod.